The 30th of January, 1933, Germany. Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, is appointed Chancellor of Germany and aims to lead the German master race to victory in the racial struggle against those deemed as inferior peoples, especially the Jews. The Nazi regime quickly begins to restrict the civil and human rights of the Jewish people and gradually excludes them from professions, businesses, and public spaces. The first concentration camp, Dachau, is established less than 2 months after Hitler became the Chancellor. Between 1933 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its European allies would establish more than 44,000 camps and other incarceration sites including ghettos. The perpetrators would use these locations for forced labor, detention of people deemed to be enemies of the state, and the mass murder of millions. One such perpetrator is a German Nazi commandant, Karl Künstler. Karl Künstler, a son of a barber, was born on the 12th of January 1901 in the municipality of Zella, then part of the German Empire. In 1915, after completing school, Karl worked at a post office in Kassel against the wishes of his parents. The First World War ended on the 11th of November 1918, when the German leaders signed the armistice in the Compiègne forest in France. The victorious powers imposed a series of treaties upon the defeated powers. Among the treaties, the 1919 Treaty of Versailles held Germany responsible for starting the war and liable for massive material damages. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on the Germans, including the loss of 13% of its pre-war territories, extensive reparation payments, and the demilitarization of the Rhineland. The Reichswehr, the German army, was restricted to 100,000 men. Karl Künstler joined it in 1919, and in addition to various training courses, he attended Army Technical School of Management and Economics. In 1929, he got married, and the marriage produced 2 children. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came into power in January 1933. Hitler gained popularity by defying the hated peace terms forced on Germany in 1919. Violence was harnessed as an instrument of government and was unleashed on anyone who resisted the regime or was considered outside the national community. Those targeted by the Nazis were sent to concentration camps to be forced into compliance. The SS was responsible for their management, which Künstler joined in 1929. The SS, Schutzstaffel, or protection squads, was originally established in April 1925 to protect Adolf Hitler and other Nazi leaders and speakers and provide security for political meetings. SS members were subject to strict military discipline and swore an oath of complete loyalty to Hitler and those appointed by him. In January 1929, Heinrich Himmler became the head of the SS, and the organization greatly expanded in size and strength. By the time Hitler came into power in January 1933, Himmler had made the SS the dominant organization within the Reich. From the beginning of the Nazi regime, Hitler entrusted the SS first and foremost with the removal and eventual murder of political and so-called racial enemies of the regime. The SS became a virtual state within a state in Nazi Germany and was staffed by men who perceived themselves as the racial elite of the Nazi future. In 1936, Künstler completed the course at the SS training camp at Bad Tölz, which was one of the SS Junker School's leadership training facilities for officer candidates of the SS. Heinrich Himmler intended for these schools to mold cadets for future service in the officer ranks of the SS. In these training facilities, cadets were taught to be adaptable officers who could perform any task assigned to them, whether in a police role, at a Nazi concentration camp, as part of a fighting unit, or within the greater SS organization. Political and ideological indoctrination was part of the syllabus for all SS cadets, but there was no merger of academic learning and military instruction like that found at West Point in the United States. Instead, personality training was stressed, which meant future SS leaders were shaped above all things by a National Socialist worldview and attitude. Instruction was designed to communicate a sense of racial superiority, a connection to other dependable like-minded men, ruthlessness, and a toughness that accorded the value system of the SS. In January 1939, Künstler became a commandant at Flossenbürg concentration camp, after the previous commandant, Jakob Weisserborn, had turned up dead in his apartment under mysterious circumstances on the 20th of January 1939, spawning rumors that he had committed suicide to avoid scandal. It was under Künstler, who was regarded as arbitrary, that the death toll in the camp skyrocketed. Flossenbürg's original purpose was to exploit the forced labor of prisoners for the production of granite for Nazi construction projects. Until mid-1943, when the camp became a key supplier of Messerschmitt Bf 109 aircraft parts, the quarry occupied the labor of about half the prisoner population. The conditions under which the camp authorities forced the prisoners to work, and the absence of even rudimentary medical care, facilitated the spread of disease, including dysentery and typhus. In addition to the dreadful conditions, the Germans created such harsh living conditions for the prisoners that they often committed suicide. The camp's Nazi personnel would often carry out executions, punish the prisoners with whipping, and order long and extremely tiring roll calls. The camp commandant, Karl Künstler, tolerated these atrocities. A condition unique to Flossenbürg was the presence and veteran status of the numerous criminal offenders in the prisoner population. Tolerated by the SS, they tended to dominate the prisoner administration, which, as a result, was particularly brutal and corrupt. This hierarchy of criminal prisoners distinguished itself in the sexual exploitation of the lower-ranking prisoners. Coerced homosexual relationships and outright rape occurred frequently enough to induce the camp authorities to segregate male prisoners in separate barracks in a futile attempt to prohibit efforts to sexually prey upon them. In addition to the generally high mortality rate, the camp authorities conducted numerous individual and mass shootings, characterized as executions. Between February and September 1941, camp authorities shot about 500 Polish prisoners, including a July 1941 shooting of 40 Polish prisoners at the SS firing range outside the camp. It was Künstler who was in his position not only responsible for mass executions of Polish and Soviet prisoners, but also took part in them. He also introduced 2-week special leave for guards who shot prisoners trying to escape. Künstler's reign of terror ended in August 1942, when he was relieved from his post as commandant of the camp by Oswald Pohl, the head administrator of the Nazi concentration camps. Karl Künstler was succeeded for 2 months by his deputy, Karl Fritsch, before Egon Zill, who proved to be even more sadistic than Künstler, was appointed camp commandant. The reason for Künstler's dismissal as camp commandant lay in his debauchery and his chronic alcohol abuse. Künstler, like other concentration camp commandants and personnel, was caught in the sights of SS judge Georg Konrad Morgan, who prosecuted corruption in the concentration camps. Among the Nazis indicted by Morgan also belonged Karl-Otto Koch, the commandant of Buchenwald and Majdanek camps, who was executed in 1945 for 3 unauthorized murders and embezzlement. Karl Künstler was then transferred to the 7th SS Volunteer Mountain Division, Prinz Eugen, which was a mountain infantry division of the Waffen-SS, which from 1942 to 1945 fought a counterinsurgency campaign against communist-led Yugoslav partisan resistance forces in occupied Yugoslavia. The Waffen-SS was an armed branch of the German Nazi Party that served alongside, but was never formally part of the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, during World War II. Between the 16th and 20th of April 1945, during the last days of World War II, Künstler fought in the Battle of Nuremberg, which was a 5-day battle between the forces of the United States 7th Army on one side and Nazi Germany on the other. As it became clear that Nazi Germany was losing the war, the Nazi regime faced manpower shortages. Thus, among the units which supported the German defense of Nuremberg were the Russian Liberation Army and the Volkssturm. The Russian Liberation Army, also known as the Vlasov Army after its commander Andrei Vlasov, was a collaborationist formation primarily composed of Russians that fought under German command during World War II. Vlasov, a Soviet general, agreed to collaborate with Nazi Germany after having been captured on the Eastern Front. The soldiers under his command were mostly former Soviet prisoners of war, but also included white Russian émigrés, some of whom were veterans of the anti-communist White Army from the Russian Civil War. The Volkssturm, or People's Storm, was a new defensive militia into which males aged between 16 and 60 were inducted from the 18th of October, 1944. The militia joined the regular military in the last defensive battles against the Allied troops. The Volkssturm comprised one of the final components of the Total War, promulgated by propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, part of a Nazi endeavor to overcome their enemy's military strength through sheer force of will. Poorly equipped and inadequately trained, thousands of males fought and died for the German war effort, even as defeat had become inevitable. Even though American forces heavily outnumbered the German forces, German resistance was so great that American heavy artillery and air support was deployed. The Battle of Nuremberg saw some of the fiercest urban combat during the war, and it took 4 days for the United States to capture the city. The battle, which lasted from the 16th to the 20th of April, 1945, was a blow to Nazi Germany, as Nuremberg was a center of the Nazi regime. The Nuremberg rallies took place in the city, and to lose the city to the Americans took a heavy toll on the already low German morale. The battle, which devastated the city, came to an end on the 20th of April, 1945, the day of Adolf Hitler's 56th birthday. Among those who lost their lives during the battle was also Karl Künstler, then 44 years old. However, he was declared dead only in 1949. There were no tears shed for Karl Künstler. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.